I'm making a neck warmer out of loopy yarn. It's really just an excuse to give you some tips on how to work with loopy yarn. It's pretty cool stuff. The loops are already in. The gauge is really consistent. You can even use the strands of yarn to do the measurements so that you don't have to convert from inches or centimeters to stitches. There are a number of brands. I'm using this particular one right now. So the first step for me is containment. So I'm just going to tuck these into a box. This stuff does not ball up well. It doesn't stay a ball very well. That's good enough. So now I can put that kind of out of the way and move it around as I need it. I'm going to save out 4 loops. 2 are just hedging my bets in case I get the length wrong. I'm going to wrap it around my neck and measure how long I need. But let me show you with a demo. This isn't me, but so I hold it at the end and I measure not to the center of the neck, but a little past the center because I want some overlap of the loops. And I'm going to be generous here because I found that sometimes it shrinks up a little as I work it. If I wanted this around a collar, if I was going to be wearing it around a collar instead of bare neck, I would make sure that I was measuring around an example collar. Bring it around to the other side and bring it over the overlap. So my overlap is about maybe 5 loops long. I'm going to tuck one loop into the other to mark this so that I can let go of it and still find it again. I've got all my loops laid out. And now working rows is really easy. This is the last loop. I take the yarn and I stretch it across. So I've got a parallel. The rule is put the new through the old, or tuck the new into the old. So there it is. And now I'm going to tuck the next new into the next old. And so on down the line. This loop was twisted. It can be hard to feel, but you want it so that the loops aren't crossing in the middle. Okay, that was my last loop. Here are my spare loops. I'm going to undo the last 2, and then I'm going to take 2 here and fold them under the previous 2 loops. Fold the last ones back, make those double. So this one goes right next to that one. This loop's going to go through here. This loop is going through both of these loops. I'm holding them together and I'm using them as if they were one. And the same here. This second loop, I'm holding right behind the second loop in, and I'm tucking the loop through both of them, treating them as one. So this edge is a little bit thicker, a little bit puffier. When I'm farther along and I'm sure that this is all working out, then I will cut it right here. A lot of people cut open the loops and they weave in the ends, but I think that's just a practice from knitting and crocheting. I don't think it's necessary here. As long as the double loops are comfortable for you, I like the double loops better. Okay, especially if you're new, it's a really good idea after the end of the row or occasionally to flip it over and check and see if you missed any loops, because when you're just starting or even later when you're doing something complicated, it's really easy to miss a loop. Yeah, I did this on purpose to show you. So to fix that, I want to shift everything down this way. The way I do it is I just undo one loop and redo it with the right loop. And then I kind of bounce that all the way down. And that way I don't do it again, because if I take it all out, the odds of me doing it again are a little too high. So I will just work that spare loop down. Now of course if you've done something complicated, it is possible to just, here, wait, I'll show you. See that spare loop? I could just tuck it into the loop next to it and treat these 2 loops as one. If you don't mind the extra bulk and it looks like too much of a pain in the neck to undo and redo everything, that's a possible solution. But that's not what I want to do here. This is my double loop, So I want to make sure I've got both loops around my thumb when I tuck it through. And this is also a double loop. Okay, and then I have these 2 loops to spare, because now what I'm going to do is try it on and see if I've got the right overlap, if it's still the right size. So there are the 2 loops. That's about how much overlap I wanted. If I lay it around the neck, I don't know if you can tell, but this has actually gotten a little bit shorter. It used to be out to back here. Now I have an overlap of about 3 loops, maybe 4 loops instead of 5. So it does seem to shrink when I do this. But that's enough of an overlap for me to go on. So that was the first row. Let me put this over to this side now. I'm going to be working the yarn this way this time. If you've ever looked at a collar, you'll notice that it isn't straight, it's curved. And that means the outer part is a little bit bigger than the inner part. So what we're going to do is add a couple of increases here. For each row of the neck part, the part that's going to be here, I want to add 2 or 3 increases. I'm just going to estimate. Put this about in thirds. And let's see, I'll try this end first. I'm going to undo a loop. I could use a clip or a bobby pin or a clothespin or something, maybe a hair clip to mark these, but undoing them works well for me, so that's how I'm going to do it. And then I'm going to count from this end. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and it's my 8th loop that I undid. So I'm going to do the same from this end. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and here's the 8th loop. So this is the one I'm going to use to increase. I'll redo it before I do the increase. Let me work this way. That one, there's one. And now I've come to the stitch that I marked, so I'm going to redo that. Remember, separating was just a way to marking. And now into this one stitch, I want to put 2. I want to increase. So here's the next loop, and here's the loop after that. I'm going to take both of those new loops and put them into the old loop. So now where I had 1, I now have 2. And then I'll keep going across. Okay, now I could feel, so if I was watching TV, I could feel that this loop wasn't attached. So that's my second marked loop. I'll rework it. Now into this one I want to put 2. I want to increase. So 2 new into 1 old. There we go, there's my increase. See, 1 old, 2 new. Everything else is just 1 to 1. And then I'll finish the row. Okay, there's my last stitch. So now, if you only want a short collar, that may be enough. I want a taller collar, so I'm going to keep on going. Into this row, I'm going to put 3 extra stitches. So, divide it in half. Here's my center stitch. I'm going to divide each of these halves into half. That's the 5th one in. That center one looks a little off-center to me, so let me keep counting. Here's my 5th one on each side. Know that these 2 are the 2 center stitches, so I can use either one and put the increase there. What I'm actually going to do is put the increase in between the 2. Now with this yarn it really doesn't matter, and if I were just doing this and not doing a video, I would just put the increase into one of the 2 of these and let that go, because that would be enough. But because you might have a yarn where the increase really shows, I'll put an increase in between 2 loops. So for now I'm just marking the 2 loops, and I'll just do this as I did before. Maybe I can do this in fast motion. Okay, I've reached the center 2 loops, the ones I marked. First I'm going to rework these 2. And now I'm going to work this one, leave a spare loop in the middle, and and then work this one. With some yarns, that's the best solution, just leave the loop in the middle, but with this yarn at least it makes a hole. So I'm going to follow this back and find the strand that goes in between the two loops. And I'm going to take this, tuck it behind and up and over. And that puts the loop, it's a little bit farther in than the others, but over time it will pull out a little bit, and I'll end up with 2 loops going into 3 loops. So now I just need to finish and put the increase when I come to here. Okay, here's my marked loop. I'll rework it, and then I'll increase two new ones into the one old one. Okay, when I got to the end of this row, I forgot to check. So let's check now. Okay, I did not leave any extra loops. There's a little bit of a hole there, but I think that's okay. So, is this neckline long enough? Let's try it on. Now, this model does not have the shoulders, but the shoulders would be coming out here. But the neck in front is actually lower than the neck over the shoulders, so I'm going to use this is misleading on this model, so I'm going to turn this sideways to measure. Okay, this looks like it's a good length for this model. I'm going to try it on me and come back, and I'm pretty sure that this is not quite long enough for me. I wanted another row or two. I tried it on, I was right. This isn't quite long enough for the real me, even though it works for the model. So I'm going to do another 2 rows or so. So in the last row I did 3 increases. In this row I'm going to do 2 increases. And again I'm going to put them at about, maybe 1/3 and 2/3. Here's the increase last time. I don't want the increase in either of these. I'm going to go back a few stitches. So I'm going to go back, say 2 stitches, and put the new increase here. And I'll do the same on this side. I'm approaching the center increase. So I just work each loop in turn as if they were normal loops. There's the one. Here's the center one. And here's the one on the other side. I'm going to take a quick look to make sure that that all lays down nicely and looks okay. And it does. If it didn't look okay, I would undo this and try one of the other options. And then I just keep going. I've tried it on again, and I've decided that this is a good length for the collar for me, for the neckline. If I was going to do another one, this time I would shift the side increases forward a little bit, and the middle one I would probably still put right in the middle. There is now a middle loop, so I would just tuck the 2 loops through that one. Now I'm going to start increasing for the shoulders. And here I should show you on the model. Overlap the front however much it's going to be overlapped, get it nice and centered, and then find the point that's pretty much right below the ear. Let me follow that along. I'll mark that stitch. And then I'll do the same on this side. That's a little odd. Okay, I did something funny because this side has an increase here and this side. Apparently I missed the increase on this side, so I'm going to undo this, redo it, and then I'll redo that part. I said I was going to undo it, but I'm actually not going to truly undo it. What I'm going to do, I took out 2 loops. I'm going to shift over a loop here, because I started to undo it, and I realized that I could mess up again. So I'm just going to take that spare loop and work it down all the way across until I get to my increase point. This was the previous increase, so there are 2 loops here. I want to shift the spare loop all the way over and put these 2 loops in, and then I'll keep going. This is where the increase should be. There we go. Now they should be symmetric. You know, the increases that I'm about to put in, I'm going to stagger them. The first time, I think I'm going to put them a little bit farther towards the back, so I'll put them about here. So let me mark, let's see, that was an increase. I'm going to go 2 loops beyond and put it here. I'm going to do 4 to 6 increases, either 6, 3 and 3, or 4, 2 and 2. In this case I'm doing 4. I'm doing 1 here and 1 on the edge. Sometimes I'll do 2 here, 2 here, and then 1 on the edge. Pull out some more, kind of lay it out. Alright, that's going to fall on the floor. That's why you want containment, so that it doesn't get dirty if it falls on the floor, because it will. This stuff likes to snake around. Alright, so I'm going to increase at the end. I know knitters will want to increase into the second loop, but I think increasing into the first loop works just fine. And then I'm going to work around to where I marked my next increase. Same as always. Rework it and then increase. And then here and on the end. Retrieve this from the floor. So in that row I put 4 increases. In this row I'm going to put 6 increases, and then in the next row I'll do 4, and in the next row I'll do 6, and so on. Okay, so one of the increases is always going to go on the end, and then I want to distribute 2 more. So I'll find my last increase, and I'll move forward 1, do the next one, and then I'll skip 3 and do the next one. I'm just making up where I'm going to do it. So I'll put increases at the end and at the 4 marked points. Okay, I've been forgetting to try this on, and I've also been forgetting to check for spare loops. I don't see any extra loops that I missed, but now I'm going to try this on. But I'm also going to double check that the collar's a good height, and I'm going to feel, if it feels loose in the back, then I'll only put 4 increases into the next round. If it feels tight in the back, I'll definitely put 6. So this was tending to flip up, and when I flipped it down, it took a little bit to flip it down because it was too tight. So I'm going to put 6 increases into the next round. If I were following the regular rhythm, I'd only put 4, but you know, you improvise. Also, this front was just barely overlapping, so I'm definitely going to keep on increasing near the front, and I'm going to put the next increase pretty close to the front. You gotta, it depends on the yarn, it depends on the shape of your body, you know, that's why you try it on. Okay, so I'm going to increase at the end. I'm going to increase close to the front, so let's say 6th one in. See, there's the center. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 out from the center. So again, I'm doing 6 increases on this round. You'll notice that this front is going to curve very sharply around. And when you lay it out, it should seem like there's a wedge inserted kind of over where the shoulder's going to be. The back should be almost straight with just a slight bit of a wedge shape. Increase. I've been lucky, the yarn hasn't tangled. Alright, so I did 6 last time. Let me check for spare loops. Looks like I missed one here. Alright, I'll work that one in. And actually, I don't feel like it. I'm just going to take that loop, tuck it into here, and treat them as one. I'm going to try this on and then decide whether I want 4 or 6, but I think I want 4. Okay, the back was just a tiny bit loose, but the shoulders were a little snug, so I'm actually going to put 5 in this one. I'm going to put 1 on each end, 1 somewhere about 1/3 of the way, and I'll put 1 in the middle. 1 somewhere in here. I'll do it this way. I'm not going to be perfect. So I'm doing an increase in the middle, one over each shoulder, and one on each front. This is really curling around, but I really need those increases in the front because I need some overlap. I think because this is kind of going down in the front a little bit, and so it tends to turn this way, and so you need extra to compensate for that. This is the one where I tucked in the extra loop. So this was not intended as an increase. I'm going to put one loop over the top of the other and work through both as if they were a single loop. Okay, I've checked it for missed loops. It's okay. I've tried it on and it's almost the length I want it. I'm going to do one more row and then I'm going to do one row of bottom braid to finish it off. A lot of people, when they finish it off, they just loop the spare loops around each other, but in my view, at least with the yarn I've used, that ends up tightening it up too much. So I want to do one more row. Because I'm preparing to do a bottom row, I actually want to sneak in a few extra increases. So what I'll do is increase about every fourth one. So I'll increase here, 2, 3, 4, I'll increase here, okay, every fifth one. So then I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and the fifth one I'll increase. 1, 2, 3, 4, that's going to be at the center, so I think I'll just leave that because that was increased very recently. So I'll start from here. That gives me a few extra increases right before the bottom edging, and that's what I want. So I will do this round. No missed loops. It wasn't quite symmetric, but I don't care. The whole point was to make these increases hidden so that if there's a little unevenness, it doesn't show too much. Now I'm going to do the bottom edging. This one requires paying attention, so I would not do this with the TV on. I'm going to start with one spare to the side and then one loop into the end. And the loop that I tuck into the end, I'm also going to tuck into the spare. I'll put my thumb through that loop to keep track of it. Next loop goes into the next old loop and also into the one on my thumb. Next loop goes into the next old loop and also into the one on my thumb. What I'm doing is making a sort of a braid along the bottom. Now here, can you see this is kind of headed a little off? Like these two loops lie right next to each other, but this feels like it's trying to open. So I'm going to work in an extra loop and just tuck it into here. I think my rate of increase worked, and I won't have to add in any spare loops from now on. And that's sort of the better situation because it leads to a neater edging. Just check once in a while to see if this is feeling too short, because as I said, the braid pulls tighter than the stitches themselves seem to pull, at least for this yarn and most of the other loop yarns I've worked with. I realize that it's when I let go and spread these out that I'm most likely to miss a loop, so when I grab it again, I'm trying to do the sliding thing. The increase did the job. I didn't have to add an extra loop to the bottom edging itself. If I hadn't done the increases in the last row, if I had decided that that last row was just about the right length, then I would be putting more increases into the braid, into the bottom edging. This is all lying nice and flat. So I think every fifth one was just about perfect for this yarn in this circumstance. No guarantees that it'll be right for any other pattern. Definitely not for every yarn. I'm good. Okay, you know, here I could keep it short, but it's sort of trying to split, so I'm going to work in an extra one here. I'm just going to take that loop and put it straight through rather than putting it through two. And then I'll go back to my regular pattern. Because at the front, it's particularly important to have enough room. Now just to secure this, I'm going to tuck another loop or two through, just to hold it in place while I try it on. Okay, I tried it on. That hole is too prominent. I'm going to go take that out. So this was the spare loop that I worked in. This was actually a little bit too long. So I'm going to do a second trick. So this was sort of hanging down below where I wanted it to be. So what I'm going to do here is not use this, or rather I'm going to take this loop, pull it up behind this loop, and I'll use these two together as the braid. So I'll put both of those through. Now here I want to do something similar, but this was where I doubled it. I've got two loops here. I don't want to lose them. Here I had an increase, and I want to take out that increase and just put one loop through here. That loop I'm going to use for the braid. I'm not using the extra strand for the braid. And then this loop I will also use for the braid. And then, what happened here? I lost one. I'll hold these two together and I'll use them for the braid. I'm improvising because I want this before it was too long, so I'm trying to shorten it by using the loops for the braid rather than adding on. But now I need to take this and tuck through here, and I will probably cut it here and weave in the end the way they usually do, because this is already thick enough. I don't want to double up any more loops, but for now I'm going to tuck a couple of loops through each other just to secure it so they don't come apart when I try it on, and I'll try it on again and see if I like that solution. Okay, I tried it on and I'm still not sure whether or not I like that solution. So I'm just going to cut this a little extra long so that I have some leeway to make adjustments. And I will try it on. I'll see whether I like it or not. I may make further adjustments to here. If I do, I'll come back and record it, and if I don't, then I'll come back and record how I finish off the end. But I'm going to test it first. By the way, I could continue poking loops through and braiding them all the way up along the edge. I could do them along the top. I would probably have to work in extra loops along the top, and I would probably tuck the strands in between the loops. Okay, I've worn it for a while, and I've learned a few things. First, when I wear it, it kind of humps up in the back a little bit. So I just use that to mark the little hump. I think what I'll do is kind of try to shorten it. I'll have to take off the bottom braid to do that. In the front I found a couple of things. First, this little end I should have shortened the way I did on this side. I shouldn't have made those last couple of increases. I should have just used, and I shouldn't have put extra for the braid. I should have started the braid a row early and curved it down. However, this little bulge I ended up tucking through the front, and it made like a little bit of a button, and it held it in place really securely, so I like that. So I'm actually going to do that again, and I might put an extra stitch here just to make it a little more, give it a little more substance so it holds in better. On this side, I ended up taking the end and tucking it in front to back. So I'm going to make a little peninsula here, or a little chain with a bit of a ball, so that I can tuck that in. And I'll do the same up here. I may have to add some spare to make a little ball here that I can tuck in. And then this, I've got this, I'll turn that into a ball, but along the front I will take this and continue it as a chain up this way, and in doing so I'll make a little ball here and a little ball here. And that should do it. Turn this upside down again, and I'm going to take out this chain. I'm going to try to remember that I sort of doubled them up at the corner. The good thing about the fuzzy yarn, when you make the increases you can't really see them. The bad thing is that you can't always see how you made them. What I want to do is go a little further out, but a little bit higher up. Here's the last increase of the last row. I'm going to take out the loop that increases it. And instead, I'm going to put that loop a little bit higher up. I'm going to tuck it in the strand between the previous row and this row. I'm going to take another loop and tuck it through there. And then I'm going to take a loop and tuck through the loop that I had. So this would be the increase, except I'm coming this way with it this time. Next loop into the top one, next loop into the bottom one. Now I want just a little bit of a ball, a little bit of mass. I will use these loops to start the braid. That doesn't look any bigger than this, but it feels just a little bit thicker, which is what I want. Okay, now I'll start the braid. And so on across. I'm not going to bother adding any extra here. So here's the hump. Done the bottom braid to here. With the black one, I never went down that far. The hump is about the third row up. Here's the center. I'm just going to take that out. The extra one starts here, I think. So I think what I'm going to do is take this loop, kind of double it up vertically, and then rework those loops. This was an increase. I think I need to rework the ones to either side too. And this is the one that should go up a little bit, so I think I'm going to tuck it through both those loops. Here there's a little dimple. On this side it's a little more smoothed out. I want to tuck not just into that loop, but into the loop, its parent loop, so to speak. So that'll be a little thicker, but that's okay. I'm going to go try it on in front of a mirror to see if it works or not. That did fix the hump. Tucking a stitch into the previous stitch, I guess it is a tucked stitch, literally, worked quite well. And this end, when I went to pull it back out, it made sort of a little fwump noise. That was very satisfying. It did work right. It gave me just enough extra that it's not going to pull out quite so easily. So I'm going to keep going. So this seems like the last regular stitch. I'm going to undo this. What I wanted to do was add a little bobble to this end, keep it curved more. I will bring this yarn up and I'll rework this. I've basically taken out the last two increases. I want this one to be a little shorter. I'm going to tuck this stitch. Tuck the new loop through all three. I've kind of shortened this and made it curve up. And I want to make a little bobble. Not too big. No, that's not enough. I'm making this up, okay? This is the part that goes underneath. This that I just did comes on top. Tuck it through. Here, listen. I don't know if you could hear that. This I can tuck backward. That will hold that together so that then I can let the collar open or close it up and hook it up. Let's do the close up hook up part. I want to make this into more of a button. Does that make a good enough button? I can always add a little more. I want to add a bobble here and a bobble here. That's a good place for a bobble. I know you can't really see what I'm doing. I'm doing it more by feel than by sight. Alright, this isn't working. That actually doesn't feel good and it leaves a hole. So I'm going to undo this and I'll practice and figure out how to do this and then I'll come back. I think I figured out how to add on a button. If I make this again, at the end of the first row when I do the turnaround, I will leave enough loops to do this. I'll do the button and then I'll turn around and do the next row. I'm pretending that I just continued this chain out. So I've got a loop here. I'm going to take, that's the one that would be on my thumb. I'm going to take one loop, skip a loop, take the second loop, skip a loop, and take the third loop. All three of those I'm going to tuck into my running loop. So there are the 3 loops. Now the first skipped loop I'm going to tuck through all 3. The second skipped loop I'm going to tuck through that loop. And then the next loop I'm going to, that loop, I'm going to put my finger through the next edge loop, and the next free loop I will tuck through both of those. So that would be like the first of the loops going back. I will continue down with an edging braid. Now if I were making this over again, I would not do the edging. I would just, when I do the turnaround for this loop, I would just make a button here. I will add one here. Tuck these 3 into my running loop, and then tuck the next loop into that plus a side loop that I had coming out. I would not do the edging down here, except I kind of already am halfway down, and to have this little bit without the edging would feel funny, so I'm going to finish the edging down to here. Actually, at this point, I'm not entirely sure that I've got this right yet. So, I've got extra yarn, so I'll cut myself a little extra slack here. Instead of just pulling the loop through, I'm going to pull the whole strand through. I'll just tuck it here to get it out of the way. Here, wait, let me do it this way. So this side is going to go on top, this side will go underneath, this will tuck through here, however big I need it. This little one will tuck through here. These 2 will show in front, and these big ones will get tucked through to the back, and they probably will not show. See, that will show. And then this one will get tucked in wherever it fits. And that way, I need it a little looser, I need it a little tighter, I can make those adjustments. And then, while I'm wearing it, I can open the collar a little bit or a lot. And the bottom will still stay fastened, so it'll still stay on, and that'll be good. Alright, so there is my neck warmer. Instead of these things, you could put buttons, you could put hooks, you could use a hair closure, hair clip, tie a string around them. I like hairpins for closing up these. Sometimes I even add polymer clay. This is a stitch marker. There's also these things. I'm good. Have fun. If you make one, post a comment. See you soon. Here's how much yarn I have left. And the little fwump noise made me think that maybe I'll make a soft fidget toy out of the loop yarn at some point.